The morning sky over New York City changed in seconds. One moment it was clear blue, the next it was filled with massive silver ships. The ships were so big they blocked out the sun. People on the streets stopped walking and looked up. Cars stopped moving. Everyone was scared and confused. Lisa Manning was in her office when her assistant ran in. The President of the United States was reading morning reports when she heard the news. Ships were appearing over every major city on Earth. London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, and dozens of other cities all had the same thing happening. General Peter Brooks was the first to call the President. His voice was tight with worry. The military had no idea where these ships came from. Their radar had seen nothing. The ships just appeared like magic. The general told President Manning that the ships were not attacking. They were just floating in the sky, waiting. Dr. Helen Carter was in her lab when the news broke. She was a scientist who studied space and had spent years wondering if aliens existed. Now she knew they did. She watched the news on her computer screen and saw the same silver ships over city after city. The ships were beautiful in a strange way. They looked like giant crystals floating in the air. Charles Webb was having coffee when his phone rang. He was America's best diplomat, and the president needed him right away. He dropped his coffee cup and ran to his car. As he drove to the White House, he could see people everywhere looking up at the sky. Some were taking pictures, others were praying, and many were running home to their families. The ship stayed silent for 3 hours. Then at exactly noon in every time zone, they began to speak. The voice came from every television, every radio, and every phone on Earth. It spoke in perfect English, and somehow everyone on Earth heard it in their own language. People of Earth, we are the Zephyrians. We have been watching your world for many years. We come in peace, but we bring a message of great importance. The voice was calm and deep. It did not sound human, but it was not scary. President Manning gathered her team in the White House Situation Room. General Brooks had his soldiers ready, but the aliens had said they came in peace. Dr. Carter was writing notes as fast as she could. Charles Webb was thinking about what words to use when they had to reply. We are an old race. We have seen many worlds and many peoples. Your species has grown very fast. You have learned to split the atom and travel to other worlds. You have great power, but with power comes great responsibility. The alien voice continued. Your people fight wars and harm your planet, but you also show great love and kindness. You create beautiful art and music. You care for your sick and your old. We have watched you help strangers and sacrifice for others. This is why we give you a choice. President Manning felt her heart beating fast. A choice meant they had options, but she was afraid of what those options might be. In your history, when a child does wrong, they must prove they can do better. Humanity has done some wrong things, but you have also done good things. We will judge your worth by one simple test. The alien ships began to glow with a soft blue light. People all over Earth watched in wonder and fear. You must choose one child from your world. This child must be the best example of what humanity can become. The child must show courage, kindness, wisdom, and love. This child will come with us to speak for all humans before the Galactic Council. President Manning looked at her team. General Brooks was writing down every word. Dr. Carter was already thinking about how to find such a child. Charles Webb looked worried about what would happen next. If you cannot find such a child in 30 days, or if the child you choose fails our tests, then humanity will be contained. You will stay on your world forever. Your technology will stop working. You will never travel to the stars. The room was silent. Everyone understood what this meant. If they failed, humanity would be prisoners on their own planet forever. But if you succeed, if your chosen child proves that humans are worthy, then you will be welcomed into the galactic community. You will learn from thousands of other worlds. You will share in knowledge that will help your people grow and prosper. The alien voice became softer, almost sad. We know this choice is hard. No parent wants to lose their child. But sometimes one must sacrifice for the good of all. The child who comes with us will be honored and cared for, but they will never return to Earth. This is the law of the Galactic Council. President Manning felt sick. They were asking humanity to give up a child forever. How could any parent make such a choice? How could any government ask families to sacrifice their most precious gift? You have 30 days to decide. Choose wisely, people of Earth. The future of your entire species depends on the choice you make. The blue light from the ships grew brighter, then faded away. The voice stopped speaking. The ships remained in the sky, silent and waiting. In the Situation Room, no one spoke for a long minute. Finally, President Manning stood up. She looked at her team and saw the same fear and determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. We need to call an emergency meeting with world leaders. Every government, every organization, every parent on Earth needs to know what we are facing. We have 30 days to find one child who can save all of humanity. General Brooks nodded and reached for his phone. Dr. Carter was already making lists of what qualities they should look for. Charles Webb was thinking about how to announce this to the world without causing panic. But even as they began to plan, they all knew the terrible truth. Somewhere on Earth was a child who would have to leave their family forever to save the human race. The question was not just who that child might be, but whether any child should have to carry such a burden. The alien ships continued to float in the sky above every major city, silent reminders that humanity's time was running out. The news spread around the world faster than wildfire. Within hours, every person on Earth knew about the alien demand. Parents held their children closer. Teachers looked at their students with new eyes. Everyone was asking the same question: which child could save humanity? President Manning spoke to the world that evening. She stood at her podium in the White House knowing that billions of people were watching. Her words had to be careful and strong at the same time. My fellow citizens of Earth, we face a challenge unlike any in human history. We must work together as one people, not as separate countries. We will find the child who can represent the best of humanity, and we will support that child and their family in every way possible. But even as the president spoke, panic was spreading. In some cities, parents were hiding their children. They moved to remote places where no one could find them. Other parents pushed their children forward, hoping their son or daughter might be the chosen one. Some families fought about what to do. Dr. Helen Carter was given the job of understanding what the aliens wanted. She gathered a team of the smartest people she could find. They studied every word the aliens had said. They tried to figure out what courage, kindness, wisdom, and love meant to beings from another world. We need to think beyond normal intelligence tests, Dr. Carter told her team. The aliens have been watching us for years. They understand how humans think and feel. They want something deeper than just a smart child. Meanwhile, governments around the world began testing programs. Children were brought to special centers where experts watched how they behaved. They gave them puzzles to solve and situations to handle. They watched how children treated each other when adults were not looking. In a small town in Montana, 10-year-old Jake Morrison had no idea that the world was looking for someone like him. He lived with his grandmother Betty in a simple house near the mountains. His parents had died in a car accident 2 years ago, but Jake rarely complained about his life. Jake went to Pine Valley Elementary School, where Mrs. Mary Johnson was his teacher. She had taught children for 20 years, but she had never met a boy quite like Jake. He was not the smartest kid in class, and he was not the strongest or the fastest. But there was something special about the way he treated other people. When Billy Crawford, the class bully, picked on smaller children, Jake would step between them. He never fought Billy or called him names. Instead, Jake would talk to Billy quietly and somehow make him understand why his behavior was wrong. Billy would usually walk away feeling ashamed, and he would apologize to the children he had been bothering. When Susan Palmer cried because she could not understand her math homework, Jake would sit with her and explain it in simple words. He never made her feel stupid or laughed at her mistakes. He was patient and kind until she understood. Mary Johnson watched these things happen every day. She saw how other children naturally went to Jake when they had problems. They trusted him to be fair and honest. But Mary also noticed that Jake never sought attention for himself. He helped others because it felt right to him, not because he wanted praise. Betty Morrison, Jake's grandmother, saw the same things at home. When Jake found a bird with a broken wing, he spent hours making a small shelter and feeding it until it could fly again. When the old man next door was sick, Jake took him soup and sat with him so he would not feel alone. As the days passed and the search for the special child continued, the world began to change. Some people became selfish and mean, trying to make their own children look better by making others look worse. But other people became more generous and loving, as if the crisis had reminded them what was truly important in life. The testing programs found many amazing children. There was Amy Rogers from California, who could solve college-level math problems at age 8. There was Bobby Turner from Texas, who had started a charity to feed homeless people when he was 9. There was Linda Hayes from New York, who could speak 5 languages and had read every book in her school library. Dr. Carter interviewed hundreds of these exceptional children. Each one was remarkable in their own way. But as the days went by, she began to notice something troubling. Many of the children seemed to be trying too hard to impress the adults. They gave the answers they thought the grown-ups wanted to hear. They acted the way they thought heroes should act. "They are performing," Dr. Carter told President Manning during one of their daily meetings. "They know they are being tested, so they are trying to be perfect. But the aliens said they have been watching us for years. They want to see who we really are when we think no one is looking." General Brooks was frustrated with the slow progress. "We are running out of time. We have found plenty of good kids, but how do we know which one is the best? How do we choose between a child who feeds the hungry and one who solves impossible problems?" Charles Webb was dealing with angry messages from other countries. Some nations claimed that America was trying to control the selection process. Others wanted to keep their best children secret until the last minute. The unity President Manning had called for was breaking down as fear made people suspicious of each other. In Pine Valley, Montana, Jake Morrison continued his normal life. He went to school, helped his grandmother with chores, and played with his friends. He knew about the aliens and their demand, but it seemed as distant as a story in a book. He was just a regular kid in a small town. Why would anyone notice him? But Mary Johnson was noticing. She watched the news every night and saw the children being tested around the world. They were all impressive, but something felt wrong to her. These children were being judged like contestants in a competition. They were being asked to prove their worth to adult strangers. Jake had never had to prove his worth to anyone. His kindness came naturally, like breathing. His courage showed itself in small moments when no cameras were watching. His wisdom was the simple understanding that other people's feelings mattered as much as his own. One evening, Mary Johnson sat at her kitchen table and wrote a letter. She addressed it to Dr. Helen Carter at the testing facility in Denver. She knew it was probably foolish to think anyone would pay attention to a small-town teacher, but she felt she had to try. "Dear Dr. Carter," she wrote, "I know you are looking for a special child to represent humanity. I have been teaching children for 20 years, and I want to tell you about a boy named Jake Morrison. He may not be the smartest child in the world, but he has something I have never seen in any other student. He has a heart that naturally reaches out to help others, not because he has been taught to do so, but because he cannot help himself." Mary Johnson sealed the letter and mailed it the next morning. She did not expect a reply. She just hoped that somewhere, someone would remember that the most important qualities in a person could not always be measured by tests and interviews. Meanwhile, the alien ships continued to float silently above the cities of Earth. 22 days remained until the deadline. 22 days to find one child who could save the entire human race. With only 5 days left until the deadline, Dr. Helen Carter had narrowed down the candidates to 12 children from around the world. They were brought to a special facility in Geneva, Switzerland, where the final testing would take place. The world watched through cameras as these remarkable young people were put through the most important evaluation in human history, War. Rogers demonstrated her incredible mathematical abilities by solving equations that college professors found difficult. Bobby Turner spoke passionately about his work feeding homeless people and his dreams of ending hunger. Linda Hayes impressed everyone by switching between different languages as she discussed literature and philosophy. Each child was extraordinary in their own way, but Dr. Carter felt troubled as she watched the testing. The children were trying so hard to be perfect that they seemed less like real kids and more like small adults putting on a show. They gave careful, practiced answers to every question. They smiled at the right moments and showed concern when they thought it was expected. High Counselor Varix, the alien leader, watched the proceedings through the ship's advanced viewing systems. The crystalline being had seen many species face this test, and something felt different about these human children. They were impressive, but there was something artificial about their responses. President Manning stood in the observation room with world leaders who had come to witness the final selection. Everyone was tense as they watched their planet's future being decided by children who were barely old enough to tie their own shoes. On the third day of testing, something unexpected happened. A news crew covering a wildfire in Montana interrupted the regular broadcast from Geneva. The reporter was standing near Pine Valley. a small town where families were being evacuated because the fire was spreading faster than anyone had predicted. We are here in Pine Valley, Montana, where local residents are evacuating their homes as wildfire threatens the area, the reporter said. Behind her, smoke filled the sky and people were loading their cars with whatever they could carry. The camera showed families rushing to get their belongings and pets to safety. Emergency workers were helping elderly residents and making sure no one was left behind. In the middle of all this chaos, something remarkable was happening. A 10-year-old boy was moving from house to house, helping younger children stay calm while their parents packed. When a little girl started crying because she could not find her stuffed animal, the boy went back into her house and searched until he found it. When an elderly man stumbled and dropped his suitcase, the boy helped him up and carried his belongings to the car. The news camera followed the boy as he organized the younger children into a line and led them away from the smoke. He was not panicking or crying like some of the adults. Instead, he was focused on making sure everyone else was safe. "What is your name, son?" the reporter asked when she caught up with him. "Jake Morrison," the boy replied simply. "My grandmother is helping Mrs. Peterson pack her medicine, so I'm watching the little kids." "Are you scared?" the reporter asked. Jake thought about this for a moment. "Yes, I am scared," he said honestly. "But being scared does not mean you stop helping people. It means you help them even though you are scared." The reporter was impressed by this answer, but she had no idea that her broadcast was being watched by people around the world. In Geneva, Dr. Carter stopped what she was doing and stared at the screen. In the alien ship above New York City, High Counselor Varix watched with sudden interest. The camera continued to follow Jake as he helped more families evacuate. When the fire department arrived, Jake ran to them and gave them a clear report about which houses still had people in them, and which elderly residents might need extra help. The firefighters were amazed by how organized and helpful this young boy was being in such a dangerous situation. But what impressed the viewers most was what happened when Jake's own grandmother arrived and told him it was time to leave. Jake looked back at the evacuation area and saw that there were still a few families who seemed confused and scared. Even though the smoke was getting thicker and the fire was getting closer, Jake asked his grandmother if he could help just a few more people. "Jake, we need to go now," his grandmother said, her voice tight with worry. "I know, Grandma," Jake replied, "but Mr. Chen looks really scared, and little Katie is still crying. Can I just make sure they get to their cars, okay?" Betty Morrison looked at her grandson with pride and fear mixing in her heart. She nodded, and together they helped the remaining families get safely away from the fire. Jake was the last child to leave the evacuation zone. In Geneva, Dr. Carter was frantically making phone calls. She needed to know everything about Jake Morrison immediately. In the alien ship, High Counselor Varix was having a very different reaction than expected. For the first time since arriving at Earth, the alien leader seemed genuinely interested. "This child was not part of your testing program." High Counselor Varix's voice came through the communication system at the Geneva facility. Dr. Carter looked up at the ceiling, knowing the alien was somehow watching and listening. "No, sir, he was not. We have been testing children who were recommended by schools and government programs. Jake Morrison is just a regular boy from a small town." "Regular," the alien repeated the word as if it tasted strange. "Tell me, Dr. Carter, what makes a child regular?" Dr. Carter thought carefully before answering. "Jake has not shown exceptional academic abilities or special talents. He has not started charities or won awards. He is just a normal 10-year-old boy living with his grandmother. Yet this normal boy organized an evacuation and helped adults make better decisions under pressure. He put the safety of others before his own fear. He did this naturally without anyone telling him what to do or watching to see if he would do the right thing." The alien's words sent a chill through everyone in the facility. They suddenly realized what had been missing from their careful testing program. All of their candidates had been performing for judges, trying to prove their worth. But Jake Morrison had simply acted from his heart when real people needed real help. "Bring the boy here," High Counselor Varix commanded. "Bring him immediately." Within hours, Jake Morrison found himself on a military plane heading to Geneva. He was confused and frightened, but he tried to be brave. His grandmother held his hand and told him that he was going to meet some very important people who wanted to talk to him. When Jake arrived at the Geneva facility, he was overwhelmed by all the cameras and serious adults. Dr. Carter knelt down to talk to him at eye level. the way adults should talk to children. "Jake, do you understand why you are here?" she asked gently. "Sort of," Jake replied. "The airplane people said that aliens want to meet me. But I do not understand why. I did not do anything special. I just helped people get away from the fire." Dr. Carter felt her throat tighten. Here was a child who had no idea how remarkable his simple kindness was. He did not think helping others deserved praise or recognition. He thought it was just what people did. The other candidate children watched Jake with confusion and worry. They had spent months preparing for this moment, learning what to say and how to act. Jake had no preparation at all. He was just himself, honest and kind and completely natural. High Counselor Varix requested a private meeting with Jake. As the boy walked into the special communication room, everyone in the facility held their breath. The future of humanity might depend on what happened in the next few minutes. "Hello, Jake Morrison." The alien's voice filled the room. "Do you know who I am?" "You are the alien who wants to take a kid away from Earth," Jake replied simply. "I think that is very sad." The honest, unexpected answer surprised everyone listening. No other child had expressed sadness about the situation. They had all focused on the honor and importance of the mission. "Why do you think it is sad?" High Counselor Varix asked. "Because kids need their families," Jake said. "And families need their kids. Taking someone away forever seems like it would hurt a lot of people." In that moment, High Counselor Varix understood why this boy was different from all the others. Jake Morrison sat in the special communication room, looking up at the ceiling where High Counselor Varix's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. The alien had been asking him questions for over an hour, but they were not the kind of questions Jake had expected. Instead of asking about math or science, the alien wanted to know why Jake had helped during the fire evacuation. Instead of testing his knowledge, Varix asked about Jake's feelings and thoughts about fairness and kindness. "Jake Morrison," the alien said finally, "I must tell you something important. The other children who have been tested are very impressive. They are smarter than you in many ways. They know more facts and can solve harder problems. Why do you think I am interested in talking to you instead of them?" Jake thought about this question seriously. He was not stupid, even though he was not the smartest kid in his class. He had watched the news and seen some of the other children being tested. They were amazing. "I think maybe because I was not trying to impress anyone," Jake said slowly. "When the fire came, I was not thinking about being a hero or getting on television. I was just thinking that little kids were scared and needed help." "That is exactly right," High Counselor Varix replied. "The other children have spent weeks preparing to meet me. They have practiced their answers and learned what they think I want to hear. But you helped people when you thought no one important was watching. That tells me who you really are inside." Jake felt a heavy weight settling in his stomach. He was beginning to understand what this conversation meant. "Are you going to choose me to go with you?" "I am considering it very seriously," the alien answered honestly. "But first, I want you to understand what that choice would mean. If you come with us, you will never see your grandmother again. You will never play with your friends or go to your school. You will live on ships in strange worlds far from Earth. It will be an amazing life in many ways, but it will not be the life you planned to have." Jake felt tears starting in his eyes, but he tried to be brave. "What happens if I say no?" "If you refuse, I will look for another child." "But Jake, I have been watching your people for many years and I have never seen a child quite like you. You have something special that cannot be taught or learned. If you will not come, I am not sure we will find another child who can represent humanity the way you could." "And if you do not find anyone?" Jake asked, though he was afraid of the answer. "Then humanity will be contained on your world forever," High Counselor Varix said sadly. "Your people will never travel to the stars. They will never meet the thousands of other intelligent species in the galaxy. Earth will become a prison." Jake was quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked, "Can I have some time to think about this? This is a very big decision for a 10-year-old kid to make." "Of course," the alien replied. "You may have until tomorrow evening. Use this time to talk to the people you trust. But remember, Jake Morrison, that sometimes the biggest decisions fall to the smallest people." When Jake left the communication room, Dr. Helen Carter was waiting for him. She could see that he was upset and scared, which was exactly how any normal child should feel in such a situation. "Jake," she said gently, "would you like to talk to someone about what you are feeling?" Jake nodded, and Dr. Carter took him to a quiet room where his grandmother was waiting. Betty Morrison hugged her grandson tightly, and for the first time since this whole thing started, Jake began to cry. "I do not want to leave you, Grandma," he said through his tears. "But if I do not go, everyone on Earth will be trapped forever. How can I choose between you and everyone else in the world?" Betty Morrison held her grandson and felt her own heart breaking. She had lost her son and daughter-in-law in that car accident 2 years ago, and Jake was all the family she had left. But she also understood the terrible weight that had been placed on his small shoulders. "Jake," she said softly, "let me tell you something your daddy used to say. He said that the right choice is not always the easy choice, but you know it is right, because it helps more people than it hurts." "But it will hurt you if I leave," Jake said. "And it will hurt me too." "Yes, it will hurt both of us terribly," his grandmother agreed. "But Jake, think about all the children in the world who will never get to see the stars if you do not go. Think about all the things humanity could learn from other worlds. Think about all the problems we might solve if we can get help from aliens, who are smarter and older than we are." Jake wiped his eyes and tried to think clearly. Dr. Carter sat with them and listened to their conversation. She was amazed by the wisdom this grandmother was showing and the courage this little boy was trying to find. "Dr. Carter," Jake said suddenly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, Jake." "The alien said I would live on ships in strange worlds. But what if I do not like it? What if I get homesick and want to come back? What if I am not good at being an ambassador?" Dr. Carter took a deep breath. She wanted to comfort Jake, but she also needed to be honest with him. "Jake, High Counselor Varix has been very clear that if you go with them, you can never come back. That is their law and we cannot change it. As for whether you would be good at it, I think you would be wonderful. You have already shown that you can stay calm in scary situations and help people work together. But what if there is a better way?" Jake asked. "What if we do not have to follow their rules exactly?" Dr. Carter looked confused. "What do you mean, Jake?" "Well," Jake said, thinking out loud, "they want one kid to come and speak for all humans forever. But that does not seem fair to the kid or to the humans. One person cannot speak for everyone, especially not forever. People change and grow. Maybe the aliens could learn more about humans if they met lots of different people instead of just one." Betty Morrison looked at her grandson with surprise. Dr. Carter leaned forward with sudden interest. "Jake, are you thinking of suggesting changes to their demand?" "Maybe," Jake said. "I mean, the worst thing that could happen is they say no, right? They already said they might trap everyone on Earth if they do not get what they want. So what do we have to lose by asking for something different?" Dr. Carter felt a spark of hope. This 10-year-old boy was thinking about the problem in a way that none of the adults had considered. Instead of just accepting the aliens' terms, he was looking for a solution that might work better for everyone. "Jake, what kind of changes would you suggest? What if instead of taking one kid forever, they could take different people for shorter times? Like maybe I could go for a year, and then someone else could go for a year. That way the aliens could meet lots of different humans and no one would have to leave their family forever." The idea was so simple and so logical that Dr. Carter wondered why no one had thought of it before. But she also knew that Jake was taking a huge risk. The aliens had been very specific about their requirements. There was no guarantee they would consider any alternatives. "Jake, that is a brilliant idea," she said, "but you would have to be the one to suggest it to High Counselor Varix, and you would have to be prepared for the possibility that he will refuse and still expect you to come with them forever." Jake nodded seriously. "I know, but if I am going to save humanity, I want to try to save them in the best way possible. Maybe the aliens will like my idea. Maybe they will see that humans are good at finding new solutions to old problems." That night, Jake barely slept. He kept thinking about his decision and practicing what he would say to High Counselor Varix. His grandmother sat by his bed, holding his hand and telling him how proud she was of his courage and wisdom. When morning came, Jake Morrison was ready to make the most important proposal in human history. Jake Morrison walked into the communication room for the final time, his heart pounding but his mind clear. Dr. Helen Carter, his grandmother Betty, and representatives from every major government on Earth watched from the observation room. The fate of humanity rested on the words of a 10-year-old boy from Montana. "High Counselor Varix," Jake said, his voice steady despite his fear, "I have made my decision. I am listening. Jake Morrison, I will come with you to speak for humanity, Jake began, and everyone watching felt their hearts sink. But Jake was not finished. However, I want to ask you to consider a different way of doing this. The silence that followed seemed to last forever. No one had dared to suggest changes to the aliens' demands. The risk was enormous. You wish to negotiate the terms? High Counselor Varix asked, and his voice sounded almost amused. Yes, sir, Jake replied. You said you want to understand humanity better. But one person cannot show you everything about humans. We are all different. A kid from America is different from a kid from China or Africa or anywhere else. An old person thinks differently than a young person. Men and women see things in different ways. Jake took a deep breath and continued. What if instead of taking one person forever, you took different people for shorter times? I could come with you for 1 year and show you what I know about being human. Then someone else could come for a year. Maybe an old person, or someone from a different country, or someone who is really smart about science or art. In the observation room, world leaders looked at each other with amazement. This child was proposing a solution that professional diplomats had not even considered. This way, Jake continued, you would learn much more about humans than you could from just one person. And no one would have to leave their family forever. Families are very important to humans. Taking someone away from their family forever hurts not just that person, but everyone who loves them. High Counselor Varix was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed. It sounded warmer, almost pleased. Jake Morrison, your proposal shows exactly the kind of thinking that makes humanity special. You faced an impossible choice, but instead of just accepting it, you looked for a better solution. You thought about fairness and kindness, not just what was easiest for you. Jake felt a flutter of hope. Does that mean you will consider my idea? I will do more than consider it, the alien replied. I will present it to the full Galactic Council immediately. But Jake, I must warn you that if they reject your proposal, you must still be prepared to fulfill the original agreement. I understand, Jake said bravely. If my idea does not work, I will still come with you to save humanity. What happened next surprised everyone. Instead of waiting days for a response, High Counselor Varix announced that the Galactic Council would convene immediately. The alien ships around Earth began to glow with different colors, and strange music seemed to fill the air. For 3 hours, the ships pulsed with light while the Galactic Council discussed Jake's proposal. People all over Earth watched the sky and waited. In Geneva, Jake sat with his grandmother and tried to stay calm. Finally, High Counselor Varix's voice returned, but now it sounded completely different. Instead of the formal, serious tone he had used before, he sounded almost joyful. People of Earth, the Galactic Council has reached a decision. But first, we must tell you something that will surprise you greatly. Jake and everyone listening felt their stomachs tighten with nervousness. This entire situation has been a test, but not the kind of test you believed it to be. We were not testing your child to see if one individual could represent your species. We were testing your entire civilization to see how you would respond to an impossible moral dilemma. The words hit everyone like a thunderbolt. In the observation room, President Manning grabbed Dr. Carter's arm. Around the world, people stared at their screens in shock. Many species in our galaxy have faced this same test. Most fail in one of two ways. Either they immediately sacrifice a child without question, showing that they care more about survival than about protecting their young, or they refuse our demand and choose to fight, showing that they cannot make difficult decisions for the greater good. High Counselor Varix's voice grew warmer as he continued. But humanity surprised us. Your people agonized over this choice. You debated the morality of sacrificing one for many. You searched desperately for alternatives. Most importantly, you produced a child who, when faced with this terrible burden, did not simply accept it but proposed a solution that would serve everyone's interests better. Jake stared at the ceiling, trying to understand what this meant. So you do not really need to take me away forever? No, Jake Morrison, we do not. The test is over, and humanity has passed with remarkable success. Your species has shown that you can think beyond immediate problems to find creative solutions. You have demonstrated that you care about fairness and family bonds. Most importantly, you have proven that humans can grow and change when faced with great challenges. The relief that flooded through Jake was so powerful that he started to cry. His grandmother hugged him tightly, and for the first time in weeks, her tears were tears of joy. But High Counselor Varix was not finished with his announcements. The Galactic Council has voted unanimously to invite humanity to join our community as full members. Your species will be welcome to visit other worlds, learn from other civilizations, and contribute your unique perspective to our shared knowledge. Around the world, people were cheering, crying, and celebrating. The threat of eternal imprisonment was gone, replaced by the promise of unlimited possibilities. However, the alien continued, we would still like to accept Jake Morrison's proposal. If he is willing, we would be honored to have him as Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council for a period of 1 year. He would be well cared for and would return home with knowledge that will help his people. After his term, other humans of all ages and backgrounds would be invited to serve as ambassadors. Jake looked at his grandmother, who smiled through her tears and nodded. It is your choice, sweetheart. But this time you know you will come home. Jake thought for a moment, then spoke with the same simple honesty that had impressed the aliens from the beginning. I would like to do it. I want to learn about other worlds and help humans understand our place in the galaxy. But can I ask for one thing? What would you like, Jake Morrison? Can my grandmother visit me sometimes? And can I send messages to my friends at school? Being an ambassador sounds amazing, but I still want to be connected to the people I love. High Counselor Varix's laughter filled the room, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Jake Morrison, your requests show exactly why we knew you were the right choice. Yes, your family may visit and you may maintain contact with your friends. An ambassador who forgets where they come from cannot properly represent their people. 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of a Galactic Council ship, looking down at Earth from space. He had learned about planets with cities made of music, creatures that lived in the hearts of stars, and technologies that could heal any sickness. But every day he talked to his grandmother on the communication system, and every week he wrote letters to his classmates telling them about the wonders he had seen. Dr. Helen Carter had become Earth's first ambassador selection director, helping to choose the rotating representatives who would follow Jake. The program was already oversubscribed with volunteers of all ages who wanted to serve their planet. The alien ships had not left Earth's sky, but now they were welcome visitors instead of threatening judges. Human children looked up at them with excitement instead of fear, dreaming of the day when they too might travel to the stars. In Pine Valley, Montana, Mary Johnson told her new students about the day one of their schoolmates saved the entire human race simply by being kind, honest, and brave enough to suggest that there might be a better way. She always ended the story the same way. You do not have to be the smartest or strongest or most talented person to make a difference in the world. You just have to care about others and be willing to try. And somewhere in space, Jake Morrison was learning that lesson was true not just on Earth, but throughout the entire galaxy.